that.
Ready? All right.
Dumbledore.
I know. Welcome, everybody, to Planning Commission meeting for July 9th, 2025. Everybody's here except for Commissioner, let's see, Lane and Amanda, Lane Jenkins, Amanda Jorgensen. Let's start with a legislative prayer and thought from Commissioner Hoth.
Okay. I have been watching a Netflix series over the last several years. It's actually only like 4 episodes, but it's been intriguing to me. It's called Blue Zones, and it's about people that tend to live like significantly longer than the average people or person. I don't know if any of you heard of this, but these people in these blue zones are living to the point of like 105, 106, 100, up to like 110, and like a lot of people in these areas. And so this guy went around to study why these people are living that much longer. And there's like 7 blue zones. There's like one in Greece, one in Italy, one in Japan, one in Costa Rica, and one in Linda Loma, California. We actually have one here. But it's just these people, and they went and did a study why they're living so much longer. And it went down, and a lot of it are things that you would expect, you know, good healthy diet, exercise, getting good sleep, you know, those common things. But one of them was community involvement and like having a social network within the community involvement. And this last week, I got to participate with my wife in the children's parade. She was the chair of the children's parade. And so we had the Viewmont High School band come over, and they were in the front with all the drums and everything. And then I got to I ran the 5K with Tyler as he was smoking down the run.
He passed me.
I don't remember. and then the fireworks going to the 4th, or the fireworks on Saturday evening. It was like a party just with so many people like volunteering and going to just so many fun community involvement things happened over this last the last couple weeks. And I was thinking about that in like regards to healthy life. So I'm like, if I want to live longer, I apparently need to keep volunteering. So anyways, but it was something that got me thinking, and I appreciate all of the volunteers that made this 4th of July festivities happen, and just how important it is, and that it's actually healthy. It's healthy for us to do that type of stuff. That was kind of my thought over the last little bit, and then I'll offer a prayer as well. Our Father in heaven, we are thankful for this day to be able to be gathered and serve within this capacity within the Planning Commission. We ask that you'll bless this time as we are discussing the needs of Centerville, that we'll be able to know the needs and present them and be able to do what's best for the citizens of Centerville. We're grateful for the opportunity to serve in these capacities, and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, and we'll say the quick Pledge of Allegiance.
Where is the...
We're going to be doing it.
Way back there.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like it.
That's a change.
Yeah.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Switching things up on us.
Yeah.
All right, let's proceed to the business items. Number 1, we've got a public hearing, conceptual site plan for the Porter Lane Estates. Who's our lucky staff person? All right, Ms. DeWeese, if you'll lead out, please.
Let me pull it up. The internet is a little bit choppy, so bear with me, guys. All right. I trust that you guys read the staff report, so I'm going to summarize it pretty efficiently, fingers crossed. So the applicant, Greg Larson and Troy Holzer, are requesting conceptual site plan approval for the proposed subdivision under the Planned Development Overlay (PDO) process. The property is located at 522 West, 400 South. Prior to this conceptual site plan application, the developer had submitted a preliminary subdivision application. Upon review, staff has identified areas of the residential medium development standards that the subdivision was not abiding by. Due to this, staff informed the applicant of their options, in which case the applicant chose to do the PDO process. As indicated in the staff report, staff believes this project illustrates how zoning may allow for a certain level of density, but at a site sorry, hold on one second. Staff believes that this project illustrates how zoning may allow for a certain level of density, even if the site is not allowing for it based on the land configuration. The PDO process is an appropriate tool, in this case providing a path for elevated development while maintaining the public oversight and code integrity. The PDO process is outlined in the staff report, which shows that this is the first step coupled with the zoning map amendment. Thus, staff has had to review the conceptual site plan application requirements, which the applicant has followed, and review the residential medium development standards. The applicant has requested variations from the development standards as indicated on table 5 and 6 indicated in the tables on page 5 and 6 in the staff report. After meeting with the other staff during DRC meetings, which included the Public Works Department, Fire Department, and the city engineer, no comments were given opposing these requests. After thorough review of the proposed conceptual site plan, staff is in support of the application as presented, so long as the zoning map amendment PDO gets city council approval. I'm happy to answer any questions because I know that this process is a little bit different than what we typically do.
Yeah, it's the first PDO I think I've seen since, gosh, how many years ago?
Probably Summerhill Lane.
Yeah. I didn't have particular questions for staff. Anybody else have questions for staff to start? Sean?
And just the whole PDO process in general, I mean, I know you explained it a little bit, but
Yeah.
we had, I'm just trying to remember back, we had rezoned it to residential medium, is that what it was?
Yeah, so the PDO process is a little bit different. So basically, it's like a blanket or a box for a certain parcel. So back before I came here, this development was residential, was it agriculture? I think it was agriculture.
I don't know, since I've been here, it's residential medium, so Lisa might be an institution.
Agriculture, and then recently, as of the past 2 years. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it was eventually rezoned residential medium. So that is like the base zoning layer. So the applicant came in and said, I want to do a subdivision. And we said, okay, submit a subdivision application. They submitted a subdivision application. And based on the parcel itself, they applied for the correct density for residential medium, which is six single-family homes per acre. So that's what they wanted to do. But the configuration of the lot didn't allow for it to meet city codes, so such as setbacks. I think they also requested.
The configuration is just a big old
For
square.
Exactly.
for a standard single-family residential development by typical standard
Okay.
of application.
So
Yeah.
because the law did not allow for the configuration but allowed for the density, we said you can either try to readjust the configuration of your development, or you can go the PDO process. The applicant said, I would like to go down the PDO process. So that is something that we allow for any development to do, so long as they give back in a certain way, meaning like highlighted features, elevated housing development, some open space. And what we had to do as staff is say, okay, this process, we need to take a step back and we need you to submit a site plan coupled with a PDO, that blanket that says, in this zone, for this parcel, we are going to allow the variation from the development standards.
Consider your request.
So,
Okay.
right now, they're at the conceptual site plan and PDO level. If this goes through, like following through the process, the next steps will be the final site plan, the preliminary subdivision, and then following that, it will be the final subdivision. So there's quite still a bit of layers, but right now, we're at step 1.
And for it to go through this, whatever recommendation comes from the planning commission would then be considered by the city council. And basically, the city council has to sanction, approve, whatever you want to say, qualify the variations that are requested. in order for staff to then work with the applicant on the preliminary subdivision and the final
Okay,
site
so they
plan.
have to be approved
Absolutely.
before they even get to move to next steps?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. To be clear, even though it says need a variance, we're talking about variations, so it's variation from the standards, just
Yeah.
for clarity's sake. The other thing too is they do have to do an existing conditions report. That's one of the criteria requirement for the submittal on the PDO. So that we know all the existing circumstances on the property to make sure we're fully understanding the nature of what's there, what's being requested as variation from the existing site.
Okay.
Good conversation. So I'm going to invite the applicant to come to the podium. If you'll state your name and address, and if you wanted to add anything to that, and then we'll maybe ask you
My
questions.
name is Greg Larson. My business is architectural design, primarily residential, as well as land planning. And I help a lot of other developers in their land planning and different projects as well. This is one that I'm, involved in as a developer. And one of the things that I have found is that rather than fight the cities, I always try and find out what the city is really wanting to see in a particular area. So in this particular case, before we even purchased the property, I evaluated the property very extensively, and came up with several different options and several different ways that we could get 6 units on this property. And then I came out and met with Sydney, and Sydney had a lot of input, as well as Mike had input. And we selected basically the plan that seemed to be the most logical. I mean, we could get a sixplex on the property, we could get 3 duplexes on the property. There's a lot of things we could do that would fit the zoning, but what seemed to be in my mind and what I felt from the planners was that single-family homes is what would be most acceptable. And so we came up with the best plan. It's a single road that comes in. There's no driveways coming off on the Porter Lane. It's just one road that comes in. All of the houses have 3-car garages, so there's not going to be a lot of cars parked all over the place. As a PUD and as we have restrictive covenants, so that will keep the project looking nice and clean, and the project will have a uniformity in design. I don't know if you've seen some of the sketches, but they're a little more on the modern contemporary side, but there's several different roof lines and concepts. And so, yeah, we are wanting to have some variations in setbacks and so forth, but nothing that's really too extreme. A lot of the backyards are close to what most single-family homes are. And, a lot of people want a smaller lot nowadays anyway. Some people want a big lot. This isn't one of them. And, I will probably be building one of the homes for myself. And so it fits what fits for me. So what questions do you have?
Questions for the applicant?
Well, I have some questions. I don't know if they're appropriate this time, so I'll just put them out there.
Now, you don't have speakers or anything, so you need to talk loud enough that I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, good. So in there, I was reading about fence height, and I just have some other questions along those lines. Is it appropriate to be asking those at this time?
Sure.
I'm asking.
Well, sorry, we're working on the sound. What's the question?
Pardon me, I had some questions about some things I read, like fence height and some other things. Now is appropriate? Okay, so I was reading about 10-foot fence.
There isn't any 10-foot fences in this place.
Well, I read that
I think
somewhere in there.
the code allows up to a 10-foot fence, but I think they're proposing like 6 feet plus 4-foot reveal or something like that, so, because I wondered that as well, but the code that's referenced is just up to 10 feet, but I don't believe it's 10 feet above ground.
Is that accurate?
Yeah,
Gary?
there's no
Yeah.
fences that come up there. The only thing that we're asking a variation on is, first of all, 3 sides already have existing fences from the church
Right.
and from the other project, and so those fences are in good condition. So it's really just the front fence. And so, the ordinance is a 4-foot fence on the front.
Right.
And what I proposed is I wanted to berm up the first 5 feet as common area. It would be landscape, and then 4 feet from that berm. So on the back side, it would be 6 feet, but on the front, it would be 2 feet of landscaping and a 4-foot wall.
Okay.
Now, it'll drop down when it comes to the angle, because we don't want to block any visibility as people are coming out of the driveway, or out of the street.
Correct. Okay, thank you for explaining that. What about guest parking?
The what?
What about guest parking?
They all have 3-car garages, and they all have enough parking in their driveway for another 3 cars.
So you're not making extra spaces or allowing it on the street?
No, just kind of similar to most subdivisions. We have some common areas, some common landscape areas, and we have one main common area that's a pickleball court, and kind of a little covered area that goes along with it. But all of our common areas are going to be landscaped so that we can just use a drip system, no grass in those areas. So it's minimal maintenance, and which keeps the overhead of the cost down.
Okay, I like that. What about, I'm assuming you're going to have an HOA or something in there. Will that cover snow removal and trash?
Yes,
So the trash truck will come in there, or people will come, it'll be on Porter?
The trash company should be able to come in and out.
They can turn around?
I don't know that we've really addressed that. I don't know that the different departments have asked that question or whatever. But I don't see that as an issue.
Okay, and is it wide enough on the private road for a fire truck to come in and turn around?
Not to turn around, it's a kind of a modified hammerhead at the end. The street is the street width that the city recommended and expected.
That's our minimum standard allowable is the 28-foot asphalt, that we don't go any smaller than that. And just to qualify the comment, we have had the fire marshal in all of our meetings on this, and they have reflected that, actually, we have 2 of them that attend our development review committee meetings on this discussion, and they are comfortable with this configuration.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your explanation on all of that. Those are my questions. Thanks.
So this actually raises a question. It may be more for staff, but I'll start with you, sir. So on the map, it shows snow storage area being stored within the hammerhead. When it calls out snow storage area, can you explain what that is?
The only storage area is actually the common area right in front of the pickleball court.
Can you zoom in on, maybe I'm not being articulate enough to explain it. Do you see in the hammerhead where it says snow storage area? So are plows supposed to push piles of snow there?
Yeah.
If it's sitting in the hammerhead during a fire and the fire truck needs to turn around using the hammerhead, wouldn't that be problematic?
The fire truck won't use the hammerhead. The hammerhead's not for the fire truck.
Oh, it's not.
It's for the homes at lot 3 and 4.
Got it.
The fire truck will just come in and back out.
I see.
Okay.
It's the right,
'Cause it's short
for that
enough.
to work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that will be how they access it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That was my only question.
Yep. That did come up, and that was their answer, that it's short enough that they could do that. They felt
Okay.
comfortable.
One of the primary concerns from residents in the area that has been raised before on this particular property is parking. And it sounds like you've addressed parking, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is there going to be parking allowed on the private road?
Are they-
Is there going to be parking allowed on the private road?
If it's permitted, it would only be temporarily, even there's an area between the units that is parking, And we also have in the CCRs that it would just be 24 hours.
Oh, I didn't see that either.
It has to be back behind a resident, one of the residents.
And even in front of lot 3 and lot 4, there's some parking area if you look at that.
Sure, fair enough, but I'm talking specifically, are there any restrictions on parking in the private road?
Well, I don't think we do discuss that. I don't think that's been a matter of discussion.
The only reason I raised.
There really isn't any place for them to park because it's all driveways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's part of why I'm asking and raising the question. Some of the developments nearby have specifically raised that as ongoing issues among the residents, where people will come and then park on the side of what is in essence a private road that doesn't have sidewalks, that creates problems for the rest of the goers.
Backing
Yeah, I think the intent is that there will be no parking on the road.
I'm trying to remember, I don't want to overstate this, but I'm trying to remember the development review commentary we've had on this. And that's what I recall as well, is that the idea is for there to not be road, but again, it is a private drive.
Yeah.
So it'd be probably the CCNRs that would dictate whether or not people park on it, not the city.
That's part of why I was
Yeah.
asking, because it wouldn't be the city that enforces that.
We might, from a health, safety, welfare perspective, and I think that might have been the conversation previous about that. But again, with it being a private drive, it'd be probably the CCNRs that would,
And remind me what CCNRs are?
codes, covenants, and restrictions of the HOA.
So if you don't have parking on that private road and you had visitors coming that more than your driveway could hold, then would they need to park on Porter? Is that the thought process?
You have to park on Porter. I mean, there's a couple little places that they could park for 10 minutes or whatever, right next to the little common areas. But really, the intent would be that we don't want to see parked cars on the street.
Right, for sure we don't. Okay. And do you also have an overflow for water, like any sort of area there, like in the spring?
For drainage,
Yeah, for drainage.
it's an area that we have discussed, and the city engineer and their other department, I can't remember which one it was. Had big
Drainage.
discussions, and basically, what they concluded is we will drain everything to the street, and that we will have 2 8-inch pipes go underneath the road to that canal,
The ditch, okay.
and that'll control all the water.
Is that the OHP?
No, that's overhead power.
Oh,
There are also retention ponds in the triangular area of the private road.
oh,
Can you point to
There's
that?
retention basins.
Sorry, what,
You are,
In the triangular, right there, there's a retention basin there and across from it.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Those retention basins.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just for clarity for me and for your neighbors, anything behind you, on the sides where homes are existing already, is that going to be leveled or kind of built up a little bit so there won't be any drainage issues?
It's gonna be designed so it can drain to the street,
Just to the street, coming this way, okay. Okay,
and not to one neighbor's property. I mean, it's got to be properly controlled.
That has been something that staff has been, again, Mr. Larson is noting, has had frequent conversations with them to make sure, to your point, that neighboring subdivisions and homeowners don't deal with additional drainage
right,
issues.
right.
That is definitely a concern that I feel like the applicant has been responsible and responsive to in finding that solution, so that doesn't burden other
Okay.
areas.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
okay. Additional questions for the applicant?
I'm looking at Exhibit M, and that talks about the city code requirement for residential medium zoned single-family lots is normally 10,000 square feet, but here we've got lots ranging pretty much like half the size. Some of them are, 5,275 square feet, which is, about 1/10 of an acre. And so my question was basically, what were kind of some of the other ideas you had for this lot besides putting 6 single-family homes on there? I know you said duplex is a sixplex.
We looked at duplexes and we looked at a sixplex. And if I lived close by there, I wouldn't want to see either one of those. I I put on there what I thought people would want. Now, even though it's a small lot, how big of a lot are the condos that are right next door to it? I mean, they have a common area between them, a little bit of yard space in back and front. They're on about a 3,000 square foot lot. So you have to look at it in the big picture. And the homes, if you go back to the site plan, we have 20-foot rear yards. We have 8 and 10-foot side yards. And we have 20-foot front yards. And so we have what you need. And so I've also designed the home so that they can make work on those sides.
How big are the homes?
What's that?
How big are the homes?
Well, it depends on, this plan here is showing the basement, and right now there's a little bit of a question as to what the depth is, and we're wanting to make sure that we are above the water table, and so we have an engineer establishing that, plus Kevin Campbell has got some ideas. So there's a possibility it may they may have basements or they may not. But right now, if they don't have basements between main and upper level, there's about 25 to 3,000 square feet.
Okay, and then with a basement, potentially another
Another
1,000,
1,500 square feet.
200. Cool.
These are homes that'll sell in the
Probably a million.
$800 to $1 million.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
sounds
sure.
like it.
3-car garage in that area, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay.
Tyler, I wanted to comment on why staff felt that that was adequate. So for residential medium lots, you typically see different, like a more dense development, right? Like you see like triplexes or you see, fourplexes. So with residential low lots, you only see single family, maybe a duplex. And with residential low lots, there is no minimum. There is like a square footage, there is a buildable area that is needed for single-family development, which this is. So even though that the lot's deemed residential medium, the type of use is similar to a residential low, which if we were to look at this, it would be very similar. So that was why staff was looking at that, which you brought up a good point, because I also thought that when I was looking over it. But that's kind of how I validated it in my head.
Sure. Thanks.
Well, and it is true. I mean, a residential medium, residential large, obviously you're going to see aggregation of density in units. And that's why obviously in RL there's no minimum area, because some lots are 6,000 square feet for a smaller home and some are 10,000, right? So again, yeah, that logic does seem.
Does the city have kind of averages for how many dwelling units per acre in the RM zone?
It's six
It
units
is,
per
it is
acre.
6?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess you could take an acre divided by 6, and that would give you kind of an idea of what the acre taking should be for 6 units.
Yeah.
Further questions for the applicant?
None.
Okay, then, thank you, sir. We'll proceed to the public hearing. I'm going to open the floor up for the public hearing. If anybody would like to come to the podium, state your name and address and any comments you'd like us to consider.
Count me into that.
I guess my name is Julie Kingan, and I live in 274 South in the west, in the, how was it, the area west of that?
That's right.
You guys have seen me before, so.
Yep.
One question is this available online?
Yes, the whole packet is available online.
Okay, I'll take a great look at that piece, but my only concern is, I guess it goes back to the parking piece, like if you're gonna allow for cars on the side of under a private road, like if you're gonna tow or not, and if you do allow cars, can you still get like a fire engine in, or like those utility vehicles in and out, like a garbage truck in?
hive.
Yeah, the hive, where if you look down that street, there's cars parked all down that street, which you guys have heard about,
Yeah. I mean,
lots of stuff.
I can answer that, but maybe after the meeting.
Yeah.
'Cause obviously, I can't have a dialogue with you now.
For sure.
But I can give you an update on it, or you can call me and we can talk about
Okay,
it.
yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
out of everything that has been suggested for this area, like as an owner and as a HOA president, like, my only other concern is if parking would dribble into our community, like, I don't wanna tell you guys, but we would. So I just hope that like the parking piece we would be able to play nice as neighbors. So that's my main concern. And then, is there a height regulation on these pieces? That's the other concern there. And then, is there a noise piece with the pickleball court? So, but there's people here that would love to use your pickleball court if it is designed, but I don't know if that's gonna be something that is within your HOA and your CCNRs, if you don't want neighbors to use it. So, that's my main concerns.
Got it.
So, but I appreciate you guys looking at this, and I'll go look at the plans in more detail. But out of all of the suggestions, this is probably one that the builder is actually playing nice and trying to work with the restrictions that are being asked to the community. So,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments?
My name's Rosalie McMillan. I live in the house that would be right behind your pickleball court.
Back there.
The one
I
home.
think I'd be,
Nope, the big
oh,
home in the back.
oh, okay, there we go.
Back
Up
in
at
the
the
back.
top.
At the top, that's
It's
my
gonna be
house.
the lead.
It's the
That
one
one,
home,
five,
right
six,
there.
four.
That's me. I'd be your neighbor. Yeah. I thank you for talking about a 3-car garage with bases for 3 cars. Like that might, of everything we've heard, that's the most encouraging by far. Because parking is the bane of our existence, that's what we talked about. And our little private road, I don't think I'd recommend you let people park. Because, yeah, on our road, people parked on that road, you can barely get past it. No garbage truck, no fire truck can get past it, and no snowplow, nothing. You can't have parking on private roads. We barely get past it, 2 people are driving, especially if one of them's a truck. So it's just, yeah, parking is the only reason I came. Like cars. This is
Why
not
can't
a
they just park
place
at the
for
church?
cars. So this is the most
Private
encouraging
property.
thing I've seen yet.
Yeah, just
Ever.
like on a Tuesday,
Like this is
for an
big.
hour or two.
We're, you know, a single family, three-car garage, like I feel hopeful for the first time.
Got it.
And it definitely, you know, and even to have like a temporary between the houses, that might help us too. Like I really like that. So here I am for the first time saying, hooray! Because I've been somebody that's come and said, oh my gosh, please no, please no. Because I can tell you right now, we have at least 2 residents, cars and cars that are on Porter Lane as I speak. Because we spill out of ours onto Porter Lane. So if you guys are spilling out of Porter Lane too, we have a problem. So that's all. Anyway, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, if we could play pickleball, that'd be great.
Any other comments from the public?
What's that?
Any other comments from the public? Okay,
She's the pickleball fan.
got it. Now, obviously, the use of the pickleball court is well outside the consideration of the planning commission. So, so I'm going to now close the public hearing. Thank you for your comments. And sir, if you want to respond to any of those questions or concerns, you have the opportunity to do so now. But you'd have to step to the mic.
Well, the only thing that I would.
If you could come up to the mic.
Come up.
Yeah,
Mr. Larson.
it's because we have to record everything and it doesn't necessarily pick it up that far away.
You need to be operating these mics, because when they're coming up here and they're looking at you, I can't hear a word they're saying.
Oh,
So I couldn't hear any of the comments, I could hear yours, but I couldn't hear the.
Well, then let me just pose them to you really quick. There's a question on whether or not there's going to be a height regulation, and the answer to that is yes, because just,
35 feet is what the city ordinance is.
yep.
yep.
The
No
next,
way below that.
I know.
The sketches, I'm probably even with the basements,
27.
27 feet.
Yep.
So we're 8 feet below the height.
And then the next question was, are there any noise regulations
For the courts.
for the courts? And I would say the answer is yes, just by default
Sure.
from city ordinance. The next question is, are you going to allow parking on the private road?
You know, I'm really glad that we had this discussion because I'm not gonna allow it. We have enough parking in the driveways and the garages, I'm just not gonna allow it.
Okay.
You got garbage trucks, you got fire, just everything, and it's just, yeah.
Well, that was all of the questions in a nutshell. All right, thank you, sir. All right, coming back to the commission, any further questions for staff that you'd like to raise?
My question is I know that they're gonna have their CCNRs, but can, city staff going to the council, can you recommend or require that there be no parking there? I mean, I'm just envisioning like one of the citizens said, if you've got two people parked across, from each other, and there's a fire in the back, how's a fire truck gonna get there? I mean, you can just imagine it happening, right? So can you say to the applicant, we would approve this if they approve in their CCNRs that, they're gonna enforce no parking on that road?
I would say, and Lisa can correct me if I'm wrong, I would say you can make a qualifying recommendation to the council as such as part of this tonight. But further, remember, this will come back for final site plan, which comes back to the planning commission for final approval, which means there will be development review, conversation, even about that very issue with the applicant to get a more formalized plan. So, but just like he's saying, we're getting new feedback, which helps us as we have that dialogue. But certainly you could add that to any recommendation to the council as well.
But since this is a plan development overlay, we have a lot more discretion. So this is not a typical administrative
Right.
decision. So don't get excited. You normally don't have this much on a site plan.
Right.
But it is, the intent of the ordinance is to couple the site plan with the legislative decision of rezone. So if you want to make those types of recommendations, we need to put it as part of the legislative decision of the rezone.
Which
So
is the
yes,
item that's
add-
two tonight.
Add your wish list to
Okay.
the
Now,
recommendation.
the second item, is that gonna be for residential medium? Like, is that a map zone amendment for all RM or just for this
It's a
lot?
blanket just for the 1.04 acres of
Okay.
tonight's request.
Okay.
It's basically a special overlay zone with specific requirements for this property alone.
That, I remember now pivoting. I had a question earlier. So how is garbage collected on this? Is there a dumpster or is there, are they gonna have bins?
I think he said he didn't know.
Yeah, no plans have been discussed about that yet.
I don't know that it's a required conversation as part of the conceptual site plan review, and for that reason, there may not be answers to that conversation at this time. That doesn't mean we could, again, ask the applicant to give some kind of conceptual idea of what that would be,
Yeah.
but that level of discussion hasn't happened yet.
Okay,
That's tricky.
all right. Okay, so I'm gonna open up the floor for a motion and debate. Who wants to start?
I have nothing,
Parking seems like that's probably the number one item.
that's the one thing that I would add to it. All my other questions have been answered, and they seem good and fair and practical.
And use of the pickleball court obviously was very major topic.
It's not our thing, man. Not our thing.
Yeah, we don't get to say about that, so.
Well, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I hereby make a motion for the Planning Commission to recommend to the City Council approval of the proposed conceptual site plan for the property located at 522 West, 400 South, contingent on the following conditions for approval, 1 through 4. I'm comfortable with it as is. And if someone wants to try to amend this afterwards, that's fine, for the reasons 1 through 4.
Hold up. Can I say hold up?
Of course.
1 through 5.
1
Thank you,
through
1 through
5.
5.
Oh,
I don't, I think parking as a qualifying recommendation would be .5. would be number 5. That's not on there, to add it. We're talking about adding it. Like we just discussed.
Adding it as point number 6.
Making it part
6 or
of
point
the
5?
HOA.
So what,
Be number 5.
It'd be 5 on the
Number 5 on the
condition.
top.
Oh, okay, I'm looking
Parking
at the wrong one.
conditions. And when you say parking, might I suggest language such that recommendation to resolve, parking plan for the private drive? Or
No.
even further, recommendation to identify a no parking
Yeah, no.
use.
Yes.
Do not allow any
Right.
parking on the private road,
Parking allowed on the private street.
within the CCNRs as well as the HOA. I would second that motion.
No, it's fine.
Sounds like it's a friendly amendment, Chair.
I'm totally in agreement. So given that, I want to hear your recommended language.
Me?
You're the one making the motion.
I guess so. I guess I took it from you. So I would say that there would be no parking allowed in the private street, that's part of the PDO or part of the recommendation, as well as his HOA, CCRs, whatever he's got.
CCNRs.
Was that great language? That was such good
Amanda, you
language.
still want to second that?
Is that language acceptable to staff?
I mean, I think we understand the intent, Lisa,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So I'll accept that as a friendly amendment. So the motion is as written, plus number 5 as stated by Vice Chair Patterson. Anybody have a second?
I second.
All right, got a second from Commissioner Jorgensen. I'm going to start on this side.
aye.
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 All right, that passes unanimously. Moving on to point 2 on the agenda, the public hearing on the zoning map amendment. Do we need to walk through this?
No.
Okay. So coming back to the commission, what we're going to do is, so sir, if you understand what we're doing, we're now considering whether or not to rezone the area to a RM PDO. And did you want to speak on that?
I think we've
If you're good, if you want to, you have to come to the mic again.
Maybe just come up anyway for the recorder's purpose, Mr. Larson.
I'm not sure what else you want me to say.
All right, very good. Then
Yeah.
we did. We did. I just have to give you the opportunity to speak. All right, going to the public hearing phase, I'm going to open the floor up to the public if they'd like to speak about the potential rezone for this parcel to RMPDO.
So you just want.
If you want to ask or comment, you have to come up to the microphone.
Okay, so you just want comments on whether we're okay with the rezone to the PDO?
The proposed action is to rezone, yes, and if you want to comment or ask questions, now's the
Say who
time.
you are.
Okay, Julie Canoe, 274 South, 600 West.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Julie.
Hi again. Maybe we'll become friends. I guess the question in this piece and rezoning it to the PDO is to make the exception for the overlay map, so we can do the exceptions on
That's right, you have to do the two together.
the two together. And the exception of the PDO is just the road piece, or what would be the exception of the PDO? Why would that be important in this?
If you look in the, so when you're done tonight, go to the table, and the table lists all of the variations from the normal requirements. And they boil down to setbacks and, you
The
know,
minimum lot area is
lot
smaller.
size, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take
But
But
yeah,
it does
do you,
add a common area.
yeah, do you have any questions or concerns that you'd like us to
I mean,
consider?
If it's something that is within where there's green spaces, which he has some in there, but I mean, the only concern I have is the parking piece,
Right.
right? Other than that, I seem to be okay with those exceptions with the PDO request.
Very good, thank you. Anybody else that would like to provide comment during the public phase?
State your name.
Oh, sorry, Rosalie Maker.
So normally at this phase, we're just taking comments and then take your questions back to the applicant. But in essence, both of these have to happen in order for us to proceed down the route they've chosen, a rezone with a PDO approval.
Okay, this still need to be,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I'm hoping we keep those three meeting spaces.
okay.
Per house, that's
Thank you very much. All right. Any further public comment? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing phase. So, sir, you now have the opportunity to respond to any of the public comments that were provided. Would you like to do so?
I'm good.
Thank you. That's a no. We're moving on. Questions for staff? None. Moving back.
I've got
Yeah,
one,
go
just
ahead.
on, can you explain like the concept of the 50-foot road versus the 28? I get there's the difference of 22 feet, but what's the thought process of, the 50 is normal, you know, why versus the private lane? What's just,
Well, let me at least tell you why the base is 28.
Okay.
And then you may have to actually ask the applicant why it's 50 versus 28 from his perspective. But obviously, as was noted, the Hive PDO has very narrow streets, and even unfortunately Porter Walton has areas of very narrow streets. And the city leadership, following that discussion, came to a conclusion that that was too narrow in some of those exceptions for those PDOs. And so the guidance from our city engineer was that the minimum width for any asphalt, even if it is a private drive, be 28 feet, because that's the minimum acceptable standard for it to still operate with the two-lane traffic type of road configuration. And so that's why that standard has been established in our code. We've been educated very quickly on that being the minimum standard through, ironically, this process, but with that history being the catalyst for it. Obviously, again, I don't want to overspeak for Mr. Larson, because I think he'll need to speak more for this. But in order for the site to work to accommodate the 6 units, that is why he sought the 28-foot. He actually originally sought even a more narrow right-of-way, but again, the code minimum standard is 28. So he's actually had to reverse accommodate that standard in order for his development proposal to work.
what was it for like the Hive and them?
I don't even know what the minimum width was in the Hive, but I don't even know.
I think it was, well, I don't know what the requirement was, but yeah, the ordinance was changed after Porter Walton.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was,
Minimum 28 feet
it
of
was
asphalt.
smaller than the 28.
And the fire code, I believe, requires 20 feet access for a fire
And
truck.
so it could have been somewhere in that
Yeah,
range.
okay.
Okay, any further questions? All right, I'll take it to the commission for debate and motion. Who wants to lead out?
I'd like to make a motion. I hereby make a motion for the planning commission to recommend city council approval of the proposed zoning map amendment for a planned development overlay PDO to be applied to the property located at 522 West, 400 South from residential medium RM to residential medium planned development overlay RM PDO zoning with the following findings for action 1 through 9.
I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any debate on the motion? All right, we'll start down here.
Aye.
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 All right, and that's unanimous. All right, sir, good luck on the next step.
I don't know if I can put my lot reservation in. I won't. Oh,
Anyways.
yeah. This is great.
All right. So,
Really
You
tiny.
guys looking to move? Okay.
moving on to Community Development Director's report.
No, I apologize. I've been so caught up in other things, I haven't really planned out what I was going to tell you, but I will hit on
Fine,
just what's at your next meeting.
and move on.
Do you have any other projects planned for the next planning commission meeting that you can remember forthcoming?
Yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
I can't hear.
Sorry, what was
To
the
be
question?
determined, yes, but no. There
We
may
didn't
be
hear the question.
something. I was asking if she remembers any projects that are planned for our next meeting. I guess I will know, August 5th, we will have the millet rezone to the city council. He won't be here at our next meeting, or we would have had him at the next meeting. And this item, if they're ready, potentially for that same meeting that night, if you're curious, so that would be the one you'd watch to see.
What's the millet rezone about?
It's just a simple rezone from AL to RL.
Oh, okay.
When I say simple, there's an area of his property that he'd like to get rezoned. So, but right now it'd be cross zoning because he's got to get a minor subdivision approval. So it's a chicken or the egg argument. So he's advancing the rezone to make sure that that rezone will then fit any future subdivision not any, he has a subdivision plan already submitted, but he can't legitimize it until that zoning is in place to establish that legal lot as part of that subdivision
That was from
process.
last.
All right, we'll check it out when it comes.
That was last time.
August 5th.
All right,
yeah.
moving forward to the minutes phase. We're going to be looking at the minutes for June 25th, 2025. Did anybody have any corrections?
I didn't see any.
I didn't
when
see any.
reviewed.
All right, accept a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes.
I have a motion.
I second that motion.
I have a second from Commissioner Hoth. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I think that's the agenda, so I will accept a motion to close.
I make a motion to close.
All right, I have a motion to close and a second.
I will second.
And I've got a second from Vice Chair. Everybody in favor, say aye. Aye. That's unanimous.
Nice work, team.
Are we off?